Hi everyone, it's Tim here. So this is just a really quick video to let you know how I've been getting on with the GivBack scheme that GivEnergy have been running in combination with Axel Energy. So this is a sort of demand flexibility scheme, a bit like the Octopus saving sessions or the other sort of DFS style sessions that other energy suppliers have been running on behalf of the national grid to help basically reduce the demand on the grid when there's already high demand, so that they can help prevent additional coal-fired power stations coming online, and helping to smooth out that demand curve by encouraging people to reduce their demand at certain times of the day when the grid is under a lot of strain, by offering financial incentives. So the Axel scheme that GivEnergy have partnered with basically does this for you, manages your battery. If you've got a GivEnergy battery system, it will take control of your battery and make sure that you've got enough juice in the tank, as it were, in order to export during the GivBack session. So what it does is it will make sure that you've got sufficient capacity in your battery just before the session starts. Then it will force export your battery back to the grid, and all of the kilowatt hours that you export back to the grid, you will get effectively a payment for. So typically that's around about £2 per kilowatt hour, and every now and again you get a sort of double earnings session, which will give you more like £4 per kilowatt hour. So I'm going to let you know the results of the session that happened on the 1st of December. So I actually missed out on the first couple of these sessions that happened earlier in the year in November, because I was a bit too slow at signing up, basically. But I attempted to sign up for the second session, but I was a bit too late. But the sign up process was pretty straightforward. I just basically used the email that GivEnergy sent me inviting me to join the scheme, filled in some details, and then Axel Energy attempts to connect to your GivEnergy system. So this is only available for GivEnergy batteries and inverters at the moment, I believe. So they then can effectively hook into your inverter and battery system and send commands to it so that they can make sure that it's charged up just before the session starts, so that you've got enough to export. So yeah, that it was all pretty straightforward. I did get an email shortly after I signed up saying that they had trouble connecting to the inverter, but that I would still be able to run it manually if I got a notification that a session was coming up. I could still do the discharging manually if I needed to. However, prior to the session on the 1st of December, they had managed to reconnect and gain control of the system. So it all worked very seamlessly. And Leah, let me show you what the results were. So this is the email I received from Axel Energy a few days after the event. So the event took place on the 1st of December between 4:30 and 6, I think it was, and I received this email on the 4th, so a few days after. And yeah, it gives you a nice summary actually of what happened. So you can see that in total, 6 megawatt hours of energy was delivered back to the grid from participants in this particular scheme in this session, totaling £26,000, which was nice. So this was one of the double savings, double rates that I was explaining before. So this was actually paid back at £4.40 per kilowatt hour. So that was very well worthwhile. And in fact, we exported during the 1.5 hours, we exported nearly 5 kilowatt hours, 4.84 kilowatt hours. So that was direct export from our battery back to the grid. But in addition to that, we also saved 2.88 kilowatt hours. So what that means is that normally at that time of day, from the previous few days prior to the session, we were typically using about 2.88 kilowatt hours in that 1.5 hour block between 4:30 and 6. And that's because we were in a bit of a cold spell and we were running our heating, obviously, most of the day. But that then very quickly drained our battery, which meant that we were drawing from the grid for a good portion of the afternoon. So that meant, in actual fact, that having the air-to-air heat pump system running worked in our favour in this particular instance, because it meant that what we did was we pre-warmed the house a little bit extra just prior to the session, and then we turned off the heating completely between 4:30 and 6, and that saved us 2.88 kilowatt hours in addition to the nearly 5 kilowatt hours that we exported. So that gave us a grand total of 7.73 kilowatt hours, which was really good, because that meant we got £4.40 for all of those kilowatt hours, and that gave us a grand total savings of £32.44, which I thought was pretty good, I've got to admit. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with that. But yeah, what I really liked about this email was this lovely chart. You know, I like a good chart showing the summary of not only what we exported and what we saved, but also what our baseline looked like for that particular day. So this is what I was saying before about because we were running our heat pump system for the few days, you know, prior to this session, our baseline, which is the grey boxes here, was actually pretty high during, you know, the afternoon after basically the heating had drained the battery. So all of this stuff was being drawn from the grid in the afternoon, which meant that then we could, when we switched off the heat pump system, we saved, you know, this extra chunk here. And you can see the red line is what actually happened. So this is our usual pattern of charging up the battery and heating our hot water and charging the EV and all that other stuff that we do during the Octopus off-peak period between midnight and 4:30. So that's that big chunk there. And you can see, you know, it was a pretty typical day for us. The battery supports the house for, you know, a good chunk of the day. Then we obviously we ran out of battery, so the heat pump system started drawing from the grid. That was this bit here. And then Axel took control of the battery because it was obviously empty by this point, and they then force charged the battery for about 2 hours just prior to the event, which meant that we had enough capacity in the battery. I think it was about 40%, something like that, which they were then able to export during the subsequent 1.5 hours during the actual GivBack session itself. And that's this big dip here where you can see exporting at approximately 3.5 kilowatts, something like that. And then the session ended, and the battery went back to behaving as normal, and it was empty again by this point, so we were starting to draw from the grid once we put the heating back on. So that's the rest of that there. So yeah, it all worked very well. And in fact, what happens is, so the day of the session, you can see, if you go into the app, you can see that Axel have changed some of the settings and for your battery, and set up the charge period, for example, to make sure that you were topped up just prior to the event. And then immediately after the session finishes, it all reverts back to the settings you had before. So I was quite impressed with that. It basically completely seamless. You don't need to do anything at all. So this suits me just brilliantly because you know, I'm a lazy man, as you know, as I've explained before. So anything that allows me to basically just leave things running on their own is super good. I certainly appreciated that, and the fact that they set it back to the way it was before is very convenient as well. But one thing I would mention, if anyone from Axel Energy is watching this, by the way, I have a suggestion actually on behalf of my friend Speak to the Geek. We were talking about this the other day, and he was saying actually one improvement that you could make with this is, rather than charging the battery back up during, you know, this period just before the savings that the GivBack session takes place, you'd actually be better off to use the battery, you know, during the morning as you would normally, but pause the discharge of the battery at the point where it hits the level of charge, the state of charge that it would be required to export during this period. So rather than letting it drain to zero and then charging up just prior, you let the battery drain down to, well, 44%, I think was the requirement for this one. Stop at 44% and then draw from the grid as normal, because you're going to be doing that anyway. And then when you hit the GivBack session, then run the force export as you would in the same way. The overall effect would be basically the same, except that you're not charging up extra during the day. You charge up overnight, you use the battery down to the 44% or whatever it needs to be, then you pause the discharge, draw from the grid for the rest of the day as normal, and then export during the GivBack session. Now, I agree. I think that would be a better system, because it means you're not then suffering from any losses incurred from charging the battery in addition to, you know, what it would normally do. So I think that would be a good alternative way of running things. So yeah, if anyone's watching from Axel, that might be something worth considering, perhaps. Don't know. Anyway, there may be technical reasons why that's not something that they do, but anyway, even if they don't do that, it still works pretty well. I was pretty pleased with the way it worked, and certainly extremely pleased with my earnings of £32 for basically doing no work at all. Not all of the sessions pay out at £4.20 a kilowatt hour. I had one subsequent session after this one a few days later, which only paid out at £2.20, but that's still pretty decent. I think I earned £12 from that, which was only a 1 hour session, but even so, I'll take that. Obviously, when you charge up the battery, you're charging at whatever rate your tariff happens to be at the time. So in this particular instance, it was just shy of 30 pence per kilowatt hour. But given that you then earn £4.20 a kilowatt hour, who cares? No big deal. But also, don't forget that if you've got an export tariff, which I think you probably do need if you're force exporting your battery anyway, you'll need an export tariff in order to do this. You're getting whatever export tariff gives you for the export as well. So for me, because I'm on the Octopus Go tariff, the export that I'm able to get is their sort of outgoing light tariff, which is 8 pence per kilowatt hour. So, that's a nice little extra. It's not a lot on top of the £4.20, but I'll take that. Still pretty good. So yeah, all in all, I'm pretty pleased with that. I would recommend it so this is a great system for those people who don't really want to do the sort of the sessions manually themselves. So, for example, Octopus saving sessions, you would have to do this sort of thing yourself manually, and that's fine if you've got Home Assistant or whatever. Speak to the Geek has some automations that enable him to do this automatically, so that works well for him. But for those who don't want to muck about with Home Assistant or anything like that, you'd have to do this manually. But yeah, for me, this worked really well. It meant I didn't have to do anything myself. It all worked seamlessly. But yeah, I would recommend it for anyone who, like me, is super lazy and doesn't want to do this stuff manually. So that's it, I think. That's all I've got to say for you today. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll catch you in the next video.